This is a greenhouse, our very first greenhouse, and we just finished putting it up a few days ago, and we've now planted our very first crop in it. It's a special type of greenhouse that was designed for farmers like us here in Africa, and it's going to be a game changer for our high-value vegetable production capacity. Yes, this video is all about this greenhouse. We are going to start by talking about why Mondo Farms wants to grow certain types of crops in controlled environments like this greenhouse. Then we'll look at why, out of all of the options we could have gone for, we went for this particular type. It's called a Quinta Africa 14 greenhouse, and we'll be looking at about what makes it so special. We're also going to take a look back at how this greenhouse was supplied and set up by a company called Holland Greentech Zambia. And we'll finish off the video by moving around the greenhouse and talking about all of the features, the advantages and the benefits of this greenhouse. You know, this is the type of video we really love to share here on the Mondo Farms channel. It's about how something like this can help take our humble farming venture deep into the 21st century. And by the way, you're going to be hearing the words Quinta Africa 14 greenhouse quite a lot during this video. Stay with us. Greetings from the farm. I hope you're well. It's so good to have you back with us again here on the Mondo Farms channel. My name is Chisha Folatia, and I identify as a farmer. This is the central area of Kimberley Farm. We are situated a few kilometers outside Chongwe, which is a thriving market town about 30-something k's east of Lusaka, the capital city of Zambia. We've been developing this farm since early 2023. This is an area of the farm where we have started to set up the facilities for our high-value vegetable production. This section is called Wezi, and it is earmarked for greenhouses. We'll be putting up a few more after this one over the next couple of years. On the other side of the trees that we left in place to serve as a windbreaker is an area that we've called Sangwani. We're making it the home of our shade houses, and we put up our first one there in April. We have been growing our first crop of red and yellow sweet peppers in it, and it is just about ready for harvest. Kimberley Farm also has areas for open field vegetable production like Kondwani. This is a big field separated into various sections where we've been growing crops like eggplant, slicer cucumber, zucchini, carrot, and green pepper. And during the rain season, we grow field crops like maize and soybeans on our larger fields like Chimwemwe, Taonga, and Alinase. We started our farming journey in 2020 on another farm on the other side of the Great East Road called Winterthorn. That is where we started learning how to produce crops and grow timber trees. Back when I first started farming and was dreaming about what my farm would become one day, I used to do a lot of research, reading books and publications, going through websites, and watching videos about farming on YouTube. Maybe you are in that same position now. You see, back then, all I knew is that I wanted to farm. But as I learned more about agriculture, I found out that there's so many different types of farming. But at the basic level, you can always split it up into one or two types. For example, there's animal farming and there's crop farming. And we chose to do crop farming. And when it comes to crop farming, you can grow several things. For example, you can do field crops like maize, soybeans, or sunflower. Or you can grow trees to produce timber or trees to produce fruit. Or you can grow vegetables like cabbages, carrots, or cucumber. Over the past 4 years, we have done each of these different types of farming to various degrees, especially when we were still very young in farming and were so excited and willing and able to try everything. There was nothing we wouldn't want to try out. We once even grew some garlic. It was in the middle of the pandemic, and people said it was effective against COVID. The garlic crop didn't work out just like many of our efforts back then. But as time went by and the amount of money that we were investing to set up the farm and pay for the expenses and inputs kept piling up and piling up, I realized that we needed to stop doing all the experiments and start getting serious and focus on one particular type of crop farming. We chose to specialize in vegetable farming, and we started growing a couple of different vegetables. But by the end of 2022, we were still trying to make money consistently with these various types of vegetables, and I was coming to see the benefits and advantages of growing high-value vegetables. But as we got deeper into that, I learned that the best place to grow high-value vegetables is in a protected environment like a shade house or a greenhouse. A shade house is a structure made with a metal or wooden frame that is covered in a special type of fabric called shade cloth that helps us to reduce the amount of sunlight coming into the plants. They are also sometimes called shade nets. A greenhouse is similar, but it is covered in a transparent plastic or glass. Mondo Farms started its journey into protected housing for our high-value crops with shade houses, which are usually cheaper than greenhouses. We put up our first shade houses in late 2021. The first crop that was established in the one that we had constructed at Riverside 4 was some cucumber. It all started out really well and we were excited as the crop grew. We even got 1 or 2 harvests out of it. But by mid-February, just when the crop was supposed to be at the height of its fruiting and being harvested once or twice a week, we found ourselves seeing signs of trouble. And within a few days, we were having a funeral for the crop. The crop had been devastated and killed off by a fungal disease. It was either powdery mildew or downy mildew. To be honest, it doesn't really matter. Let's just call it a mildew. The crop was gone, and we had learnt another important lesson in our farming journey. Cucumber is hard to grow in the rainy season. It is very susceptible to fungal diseases if it ends up in a humid environment like we had in that shade house. The major things that happened in that situation were, number 1, rain. Lots of rain comes during the January and February, which are the peak months of precipitation. Number 2, tall plants. The crop had grown well due to all of the feeding and the good care that we had given it. So you have restricted airflow around the plants, which are constantly being rained on every day or so, making the leaves very wet. This all resulted in the shade house becoming a perfect place for the fungal disease to strike and to take hold, killing our crops. I consulted some experienced cucumber growers and learned that the best place to grow cucumber during the rainy season is inside a greenhouse, which is better than a shade house because it has a roof that will prevent rain from bringing excess moisture. Farming is always full of lessons, and we had just learnt a very, very big one. We had seen that on top of all of the investments we were still doing in pumps and irrigation systems and all of that, and even after the investment that we had made into the shade house, if we wanted to be able to grow crops like cucumbers throughout the year, and especially to catch a time when the market price is best, we needed to get more into greenhouses. So I went back to my earlier notes that I had been making back in 2020, early 21 about greenhouse farming, reading them all up again, and I started reminding myself about some of the basics, the background and the history of greenhouse farming. We're not talking about that on this video because, let's be honest, there's plenty of other videos made by maybe NGOs or, University of something that go into such details. We also learned more again about the different types of greenhouses that there are, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. But my main focus at this point was to find out how we were going to build or purchase a greenhouse for ourselves. I got really motivated as I learned more and more again about the benefits of greenhouse farming. Things like protecting crops from the effects of the weather. A greenhouse, like its cousin the shade house, is what we call a controlled environment. And inside it, a farmer or a grower can create what is called a microclimate. The temperature and humidity shouldn't vary too much, and we can adjust it to what is best for the crop that is being grown. This allows us to have more consistent production, and with a greenhouse especially, we can produce crops at different times of the year and even sometimes throughout the year. To go back to the lesson that we had learned at Riverside 4 with the cucumber in the shade house, yes, the shade netting of the shade house could regulate the temperature and allow the cucumbers to grow really, really well. But we then started having a problem when the rain came and there was now too much moisture, which led to the fungal diseases and which led to a funeral for that crop. A good shade house design should also include something that can control the entry of insect pests. Now, this is normally in the form of some insect netting on the sides, as we shall see later. Insect pests are something we do not want in our crops. They will either come along and eat the crops, the leaves, and infect the stems and do all sorts of damage, or they bring along disease. So with a greenhouse that controls pest entry and access to our crops, we get two major advantages. Number one is we minimize crop losses. We are not into farming as a business in order to be sharing our benefits of our farm with the insect pests. No, we are not, are we? Number two, by having less insect pests, we can then minimize the use of chemical pesticides. Now, that is always a good thing. In a greenhouse, you can also find that using systems like integrated pest management, IPM, is much easier to do. The controlled environment of the greenhouse also allows farmers and growers to produce better quality produce. You can affect things like the size, the taste, the flavor, and the overall appearance of the crops, making them more attractive to customers and hence commanding better prices on the market. Greenhouse farming enables farmers and growers to optimize conditions such as temperature, light, humidity, and irrigation, which should all lead to higher yields than open field farming, and which should then lead to increased profitability for the farmers and the growers. Greenhouse farming enables farmers and growers to be able to grow crops with less resources. When you look at some of the major resources needed for crop production, like water. So, for example, most greenhouses use drip irrigation or other micro irrigation systems, and it's also easy to put in water recycling methods through a small growing area like a greenhouse. This is really important because water conservation is a challenge across most of Africa. Many of our farmers and growers have challenges finding water from where it is, maybe the borehole or the river or the stream, transporting it to where the crops are using pipes and channels and furrows and stuff. When you look at space, more crops can be grown even inside a small greenhouse than can be in the equivalent size of an open field. So with a greenhouse, you're able to concentrate your space and get more bang for your buck, shall we say. Labor is another place where greenhouses offer massive advantages because even a small workforce is able to produce more produce in a small greenhouse than they would in the equivalent open field area. There's one more very important benefit of having and using a greenhouse that is very hard to put in words. I'm talking about how having a greenhouse makes you think and feel about yourself as a farmer. And it's also the way it helps your stakeholders, like your customers, people like your bankers and the other lenders, feel about your farming venture. And even your employees will change their mindsets when they go to work in a greenhouse. In agriculture, there are certain things that show a level of seriousness while also giving you more capacity. Now, I'm not talking about things that just look good, like a Swiss watch. It's not a Swiss watch, by the way. Or maybe like a German car, Maybach and all of that. In agriculture, we're talking about certain assets that take your farm production to another level. Think about tools and assets like a tractor at the very simplest level, a combine harvester, or even something like a center pivot. Or facilities like a cold room, a milking parlor, or a grain silo. For vegetable farmers, having a thing like this, a greenhouse, is in the same category. And in any case, look at it. Doesn't it just look so... I don't even know the word. So we've been working hard for quite some time to reach the capacity of having a greenhouse or 2 or 3 at our farms. We had to decide what kind of greenhouse, what size, what capacity, made of what materials. The first option and the cheapest option would always be to go for something self-made. And that is how we started with shade houses. Our first one at Westgate was locally made. It was quite a lot of work, and it was supposed to all be much cheaper than the professionally constructed and installed ones. But it wasn't very strong, and we ended up having to repair it a few times. We had all sorts of drama, and one day I could make a very interesting video all about that story. In the end, we had to pull it down as the repair costs were really mounting up. The silver lining is that we have used the shade cloth and the wire rope from it to construct smaller and stronger greenhouses. We're quite confident in the one that we built at Sangwani earlier this year. We haven't had any structural problems with the shade house that was supplied by a professional company back in 2021. So it was almost inevitable that when we planned our first greenhouse, we would decide to invest in what can be described as a real one. We started looking at options and pricing and then figuring out how to raise the funds that we would need to make the investment. We've been working closely with Holland Greentech Zambia for quite some years now. They're a dynamic and exciting company that works at the next step of horticulture in sub-Saharan Africa by offering quality inputs and services to vegetable growers. They have offices in Benin, Burkina Faso, Ghana, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania, the Netherlands, and of course here in Zambia. Holland Green Tech offers horticultural inputs and services and represents some of the world-leading partners, including Ragsvan, a Dutch company that has been producing quality vegetable seeds for 100 years. Revulis, which is a global manufacturer and provider of micro and drip irrigation systems and solutions. Coppet is a global leader in sustainable crop protection and pollination. And AgroCares, who offer solutions for measuring nutrients and other key parameters in soil. With all of that taken care of, it wasn't a big surprise when Holland Green Tech announced that they were taking their range of products for African farmers up to another level. They are now representing a company in Lebanon called the Quinta Group. This company makes a special type of greenhouse that is perfect for Africa, and Holland Green Tech is now supplying and installing Quinta greenhouses in the countries that it operates. Back in August last year, Mondo Farms was invited by Holland Green Tech Zambia to a field day for some of their high-value vegetable farming customers. One of the main aims of that field day was for us to see for ourselves what these Quinta greenhouses are like. They showed us inside and around the greenhouses, and we got to see and appreciate the benefits of the Quinta greenhouses and what advantages they offer when compared to other alternatives that we had been considering. It was quite convincing, and Holland Green Tech had done some very effective marketing. You can tell where this story is going, right? And fast forward a few months, and here we are with Mondo Farms' first greenhouse, a Quinta Africa 14 that was set up and installed by Holland Green Tech Zambia. Yes, I know. I haven't quite shared why we chose this particular greenhouse. But before we do that, we want to take a very quick look back at how we went from having a piece of bush here to having this amazing structure, the construction process. It's time for a backstory. You know, years ago when we used to watch Alama videos, my YouTube, seeing Ifma greenhouses, right? I couldn't imagine one day actually having one. And like now we actually have our own one.
This is yours.
When something is good, it's really difficult to talk about it and to express how you feel. It's always easier to complain because we have a negative mindset. So it's always amazing. So now we've got this Quinta Africa 14, 36 meters by 14, protected environment. One of the things I'm really loving is being able to grow cucumber in the rainy season. So we finally have our Quinta Africa 14 greenhouse finished and handed over, and we are loving it. Now we're just doing some extra final touches because it was built on a bit of sloping land. We've had to do some ramp and steps and stuff up at the entrance area. And because of the slope again, we're also doing some retaining walls and some French drains in order to take away the rainwater when it comes later on. The team was in here last week and they were doing all the bed preps and they got to the stage of planting the crop, which they did the other day. We will be featuring that in another video very soon. But in the meantime, let's take a look around at some of the amazing features of the Quinta Africa 14 greenhouse. Quinta has 3 sizes of greenhouses available for Africa. This is the biggest one, the largest one. It is 14 meters wide by 36 meters long. They have another size, which is 10 meters wide by 36, and the smallest unit is 8 meters by 30. So for Quinta having these 3 option sizes, it gives farmers and growers, people developing their growing areas, options to choose from, depending on which size can fit into the land that you have available and also into your budget. We decided to go for this big one to start with because when we surveyed our land, we realized and calculated that Wezi is big enough to accommodate 3 of these 14 by 36 units all side by side, and we have another 2 that will be coming along further to the west as we go on. Other growers and farmers will have to maybe choose different sizes and combinations depending on the size of and orientation of the land they have available. The Quinta greenhouse is made up of a steel frame that is covered in a special greenhouse plastic. It's made up of these arches, which the distance from this arch to this arch is 3 meters. Its robust structure of these galvanized steel tubes like this one. Let me pull it like this. This is stiff. And this is what helps to make it able to resist harsh climate variations and strong wind conditions. It has reinforcements and includes windbreakers to fortify the structure. One of the great features of the Quinta greenhouses is in the design of their shape, which takes advantage of science to create a natural ventilation system that gives us optimal heat dissipation and natural climate regulation. We can see here how it works with these high walls that are 3 meters on the side and a ridge running along the middle with a crest of 5 meters. There is a ridge ventilation opening at the top, which is 75 centimeters deep. When air inside the greenhouse gets warm, it rises up with convection currents and then escapes through the opening up at the top. When that happens, we have lower pressure in the greenhouse and cool air is drawn in from the sides, which are made of mesh. So we have this movement of air, which makes the temperature better for the crops. The natural ventilation that we have with this type of greenhouse gives us a major advantage over greenhouses that were designed as tunnels like these. With them, the hot air rises up into the middle and then basically stays there. It doesn't have any way to escape apart from a bit of it through the ends. The tunnels can get very, very hot, which can lead to the crops inside being very stressed. With the ridge design structures, that is unlikely to happen. I mentioned earlier, didn't I, that the sides are made of this insect mesh. Beautiful stuff. Now, this is part of the natural ventilation system that we spoke about earlier by allowing air to come in. But what it doesn't allow to come in, especially something this fine, is most of the insect pests. Ain't nothing coming in there. And we don't want insect pests coming in here to cause us problems. These Quinta greenhouses are supplied with a special plastic that includes 3 layers of polyethylene film that is specified for African climatic conditions. By the way, it is not advisable to use ordinary, regular, or ordinary any of those plastic sheeting for covering a greenhouse. It just will not last long, especially when it is exposed to the sun and the wind and the rain and all of that. Because greenhouse plastic, as you can imagine, is something that is specifically designed and fit for purpose. It is built to be out here for months and months in all sorts of climate conditions. This Quinta plastic that they use here is UV stabilized, and it is designed to last us 33 months. I want to talk a bit about why plastic is better than glass for greenhouses here in Africa. When I was in the Netherlands a couple of months ago, I noticed that most of the greenhouses there are covered in glass. Now, it's because of the primary reasons why greenhouses are used in cold climates. They allow farmers there to grow crops during the cold and dark seasons that they have most of the year. Glass is great if you want to bring in light. It is fully transparent and you get all of those UV rays coming in. But here in the tropics, we have a lot of light most of the year, and we actually have to reduce its intensity. That's why greenhouse plastic is translucent rather than transparent. So there's some farmers in Africa thinking that they can order a greenhouse from Europe or North America, maybe an old or second-hand, refurbished, reconditioned one. But that may not be a great idea because the type of greenhouses in such places are not suited for our climates. One of the greatest features of the Quinta Africa greenhouses is that they come with these steel supports running along each arch and covering most of the growing area inside the greenhouse. They're called the crop holder. And as the name suggests, its purpose is to hold up the crops. It allows us to have an amazing system of trellising. You can imagine in a couple of weeks' time or so, when the cucumber crops that have been planted are vining all the way up to the top, we're going to be able to put in some system here that will allow us to hold up the crop. What we have here, the Quinta crop holder, is very strong. It is 16 kg per square meter, which is very, very, very good. The thing we love about this system is that it means we will no longer, when we're growing crops in here, have to go out there and source those tuma vimitengo and everything, the natural crucifixes that we call them here on the farm, and that is great for the environment. It'll also look a lot neater and cleaner when you look along here and you don't see vimitengo in here. Another special feature is the entrance area. It has a cool name and it's called the SAS, Safety Access System. It consists of 2 doors, one on the outside and another on the inside, with a 1 meter clearance in between. The 2-door system helps to minimize the entry of flying insect pests, which normally come in and out when we open the doors to enter or exit. The door system also controls this important feature that helps us to control soil-borne diseases coming into the greenhouse on the shoes or the jombos of people as they enter. We put a footbath across the entrance and then fill it with a disinfectant mixture. Some farmers just use something as simple as bleach. The inside of the greenhouse is quite spacious. If we do the maths and multiply 14 meters by 36, the answer is 504 square meters of growing space. As you can see here, we don't use all of that space because we have to have pathways and we have to leave space for the irrigation pipes and for our tools, our inputs, and of course, our harvests when the time comes. The approach to greenhouse farming is very different to how we grow crops in the open field. You've been hearing me use the phrase on this video, high-value vegetables, high-value crops, and some of you might be wondering what I'm talking about. Well, because of the investments needed in greenhouses at any level, they are normally used to grow crops that fetch higher prices on the market. Here in Zambia, we are talking about things like sweet peppers, the reds and the yellows. We're talking about English cucumber, sweet melon, and things like cherry tomatoes. In fact, I remember back in, I think it was the 90s, the very first greenhouses that we saw being put up here in Zambia were established for rose export growing. The basic idea is that if you're growing high-value crops in a greenhouse, then you don't need to grow as many crops as you would if you were doing it in the open field. You can actually grow more with less space, less resources, less inputs, less water, and less stuff, as we were saying earlier. Greenhouse farming is an amazing and great option for up-and-coming farmers like ourselves. Mondo Farms is only in its 5th year of agricultural production, and with this greenhouse that we've now put up, our first one, and the 1, 2, 3, 4 more that we're going to be putting up in years to come, it's going to change our trajectory, change our financial well-being as we move deeper and deeper into high-value vegetable production, for which our country, Zambia, still has a lot of potential. I'm very glad and excited that Mondo Farms has now gone into high-value farming in this greenhouse, and I'm also very glad that I've had this opportunity to share with you here on the Mondo Farms channel of why we went into high-value vegetable farming. On top of doing a whole bunch of different types of farming, it is all part of our mix. We've also shared on this video how we went through various options for different greenhouses that we would make and how we settled on this one, the Quinta Africa 14 greenhouse. If you are farming in Africa and you want to find out more about the Quinta Africa 14 greenhouse, no, don't start sending me comments, what's this, what's that, how did you, and all of that. I'm gonna put the details, the contact details for Holland Green Tech, all their offices here in Africa, in the description below, and you can get in touch with them and find out more directly from the supplier. We've been making these videos here on the Mondo Farms channel since February of 2021. It all started out very simply. If you've seen some of our older videos, oh my goodness me, I'd be walking around showing people the onion crop and the butternut crop and all of that. We've now taken things to a much higher level with much better production and a lot more preparation that goes into it. The result of that has been that we've built up quite a following, and we are getting close to 30,000 subscribers that have signed up to be notified each and every time a new video comes along. If you want to be one of those subscribers, then the easiest thing to do is you can just press the subscribe button, and if you press the bell icon, then YouTube will let you know when another video comes along. Our videos are all about our farming journey here in Zambia as we establish these 2 farms on the outskirts of Chongwe. But we make them with you in mind, trying to get people who are already into farming or thinking about farming, people who are in our country, Zambia, the neighboring countries in SADC, and maybe the rest of Africa as well, to see what we have been going through. Something I'm very pleased and glad, and I don't even know how to say about it, is the fact that this is our very first brand partnered video. I'm grateful for the opportunity that I was given by Quinta and by Holland Green Tech to work with them and for them to come on board so that we can help expose them to the Mondo Farms channel audience. If you're part of that audience and you know someone who should join this and watch videos like this, then the easiest thing you can do for that person is to press the share button and then maybe forward this to them using YouTube's share facility on your social media platform, maybe WhatsApp, Facebook, or Telegram, or whatever. We are always glad when our videos are spread to other people who should be able to benefit from seeing them. If you think this video was worthy of your stamp of approval, then what we'd like to ask you to do is press the thumbs up button, the one that looks like this. And what that does is tell the YouTube algorithm that this is a video that people like in this topic, and it will then suggest this video to more people who have a common interest like you and us have. And of course, you can also send us a comment by typing something in the comment section of the YouTube thing that you are watching. We get quite a lot of comments on our videos, and we do read each and every one, and we do try and engage as appropriately as we can with each and every one of them. Thank you for joining us here on the Mondo Farms channel. My name is Chisha Folotia. Shale Nipo. Bye-bye.